Hey Creagears, Robo here and welcome back to the second video in our final Salmon Run Bosses series. In today's video we will show you guys how we made one of the brand new special wave bosses from next wave, the Mudmouth, complete with its transparent body and the scrap that it actually holds.
Sure.
Let's get started then. For this amiibo I started with the base of the geyser that the Mudmouth actually comes out of. This was luckily just the same design as I had used for the Goldie amiibo, with a 6mm thick piece of MDF that I had superglued to a craft paper base. I then chamfered the edge and divided the ring into 4 equal parts. Then on each of these quarters I had to place a 2mm wide EVA foam arrow to complete the design of the geyser. A small error, but luckily not project breaking. Then, after all 4 arrows were attached, we could then glue the geyser to the lid of the amiibo base, followed up by some grinding for some decorative lines on both sides of each arrow. Next up, the base of the body. Since the Mudmouth have a transparent body, I also wanted to make a transparent base. For this I made this pattern so I get a 120mm tall cylinder with a diameter of 50mm, with a dome added on top to get the rounded head of the Mudmouth. Although for the material itself I had searched a long time for a nice big sheet of plastic that I could use for the body, but I just could not find a piece of scrap plastic that was big enough. Then I realized that I could actually use a sheet of plastic that you would normally use to like seal or plasticize a sheet of paper in between, but if I leave it empty, I get a good solid piece of plastic that I could use my pattern on. Then I just had to cut out the pattern with some scissors, curl the sheet into shape. But to really get it to hold its shape, I used this technique that I had thought of for the first tries of the shield beam of the slime lid. I first grabbed a piece of masking tape that I placed on the inside of the seam to hold the two ends in place. Then I could go over the seam with my hot glue gun, while making sure that I don't go too slowly to not overheat the plastic, and to use the geyser to make sure I keep the right diameter. Once the glue had cooled down, I could then use the fact that the masking tape only sticks temporarily to easily pull the tape from the inside without pulling out the hot glue. Then we only had to use a little bit more hot glue to close off the top of the body, but carefully adding a little bit of hot glue to each of the seams and closing these off one at a time. Then after we got this dome, I then drew on the mouth and the eyes of the Mudmouth before adding a bead of hot glue along the edge of the mouth for some extra support before I carefully cut out the opening. Then we get to make the bottom of the mouth by matching half a circle to the curve of the bottom of the piece that we had just removed from the body. Then we get to go and cut out another piece very similar to the one we just removed from the body, but then a bit wider to make up for the opening that it will create inside of the body. And with a slit on top to make it curve into a hollow piece, we can then finalize the curve in place with a bead of hot glue and even add the bottom to it. And then we get to finish the mouth. For this we use some baking paper and this rounded tall triangle to do it. Which I then curve. And after a little bit of texturing within the mouth and even adding a uvula to the back of the mouth, we add the tongue. With all the pieces attached, next up is to carefully maneuver the piece through the body to place it onto the opening and to not have it stick to any of the wrong walls. Then some final texturing on the sides of the mouth, and then we can finally add the two big blobs to the top of the mouth. But while we wait on those to dry, I wanted to start to add some of the body to the eyes, to already have these prepped before we actually start on the rest of the layers of slime for the rest of the body. By adding 2 layers of hot glue and then smoothing the shape with the nozzle of the gun and a wet finger to not have the hot glue stick to my fingers. And once these were added, we can also add one more layer to the blobs to not have them have such a flat back, and place them back to cool down. But with these cool down, we can finally add them to the upper lips of the Mudmouth. We used some 5mm EVA foam for the mohawk. For this I had already drawn a 15mm wide circle to simulate the top of the head, and so we only needed to use the mohawk from the reference sheet as a base to draw and cut out the piece. Which, after a bit of texturing with some shallow cuts with an X-Acto knife, and after opening these with a small lighter, it was added to the top of the head. Then we got a fun final piece for the body. Since in the artworks and in game the Mudmouths have these big bubbles on the bottom of their bodies, which I also want to include in the amiibo. So for this I came up with this amazing solution by using these big glass marbles to get these big half bubbles of hot glue. These were made by first getting these marbles and your fingers wet, then spewing a bunch of hot glue onto the marble, and then once enough of the marble has been coated, we hold this back within the top of water to get it to cool down a lot quicker. Not dropping it in though, because this will just make them stick to the bottom of the top, ruining the nice surface finish. And afterwards we get these really awesome blobs of slime that we can then easily remove from the glass marble and add to the rest of them that we've already added to the bottom of the body. Next up were the accessories for the Mudmouth. Yes, you heard me right, accessories. On the Mudmouths in-game you can see that probably while they've been traveling throughout the sewers, they've been collecting a lot of trash within their bodies. So we had prepped these 3D printed pieces to represent that trash. Pieces like this dark blue gas tank, this dark red wheel, this orange balloon, which I first thought was like a balloon or a splat bomb, but looking back at the model and the black color of the piece, which I first thought was like some sort of texture error, it was actually probably just a trash bag. I already found it weird to find a balloon within all of that other obvious trash. But at least we can also use this orange on like the single dually and this nozzle over Splattershot that I also wanted to add, as if the Mudmouth had already defeated some other players before we encountered it. Speaking of other players, we've also got some splatbombs 3D printed to go with the amiibo. Since, well, it's the only way to defeat the Mudmouth. With this nice orange core to show the team color we chose for this Salmon Run series, both on the amiibo and the diorama. Then we've got this nice dark green jerry can. And lastly, we've got this bent soda cup, which we will give a nice yellow top. Same as the other crust bucket cups that we've spread throughout the diorama. Which then needs to be followed up with some black to finish up the cup. Yes! We've also got a need for some black on the dualies. Even on the spout of the jerry can. And of course the rubber on the wheel. Then to get a little bit more colorful, why not also finish up the splat bombs? So for this we had already started with some pink for some of the ends of the splat bomb, which was then followed up with a purple for the frame. Then we've got some dark green for the hinges on top of the splat bomb. Next we use a lime green for the tips of the frame. And lastly we use a little bit of white paint to clean up the clips that hold the core within the frame. And to give a little bit of a white shine to the edges of the core for a more plasticky feel. Then we've only got some of the metal details left for the accessories. Stuff like a gunmetal grey for the spout of the jerry can, and some dry brushing on its edges. And this was also done for the blue gas tank, with also some big scrapes and dents on the rest of its body. And lastly, some plate metal for the geyser base. Now that we've got these accessories done, we can at last make some holes within the body of the Mudmouth to add each of the 3 printed pieces. So one by one we can carefully cut a hole with my X-Acto knife, edit the holes until the pieces stick out just as much as we want to, while we hold them in place to let the hot glue drip onto each of them. Same as with the accessories like the weapon parts. Although we will wait with the splat bombs since these are actually not part of the body, so they will get minimal water onto them. As for the balloon, I wanted to wait with this since I wanted to add some white LEDs to the eyes together with some green LEDs that will shine throughout the body, since otherwise I couldn't reach far enough into the body to secure the eyes. But in the end, the circuit would only give enough power for the colored LEDs, and this was thus not strong enough for the white ones. At least this means that we can add the balloon and also add the rest of the hot glue to texture the body. And so, once all of that has been added, and we've got the correct configuration for the LEDs within the body, we can glue the Mudmouth with the bubbles to the geyser with the LEDs. With the amiibo now as one solid body, we can add some of the final details like some black to the back of the mouth to create more depth around the uvula. After that, we can also add some white primer to the mohawk. Being very careful not to add it to the slime of the body. After that has had a chance to dry, we can mix an orange with a red for some color. Even adding a normal orange back to the ends of the hair for some interesting gradient. Finally, we now got everything set up for the painting of the body. So let's start by adding a mixture of our good old transparent green paint with a blue transparent paint for the inside of the mouth and the eyes. And look, we got a shiny Mudmouth now! Although I like the original one better, so let's continue by adding the splat bombs. One nicely thrown within the mouth, perfectly on the marks, and another one thrown a bit off mark to the side. But with that, we can officially use our transparent green paint on the body of the Mudmouth. And so, also showing the biggest problem with this project, the hot glue itself. Because apparently, the place where we normally get our hot glue has changed the recipe that they use for the sticks. So now are they not only a lot less flexible and a lot stiffer, they're also a lot less transparent and more cloudy after cooling down. And on top of all of that, the transparent paints have a much harder time even sticking to the glue itself. Damn it! And being very careful with the few original sticks that we still have in our collection. Those are only to be used for details on amiibos and such, and not for construction. Luckily, with a few more coats, we're still able to make the paints work on the new body, and so we get to add the gloss varnish to the body of the Mudmouth. Ooh, what's up, Mina? So people can actually see the difference that applying the gloss makes. Good idea! Although, we've now got no more need for another Mudmouth. Ooh, that sounds fun! So, if before March 1st we reach 3,000 subscribers for the channel, we get to make another golden Mudmouth, complete with LEDs and the right kind of hot glue for the transparent effect? Yeah, sounds like a deal! What do you guys think, Creagears? But for now, looks like we've covered all of the body of the Mudmouth. So, with that, we can officially announce the Mudmouth Custom Amiibo as finished. Hey Creagears, Robo here, and we hope you enjoyed this latest episode in our quest to make all of the Salmon Run bosses as custom amiibos. So, are you guys up for the challenge? 3,000 subscribers before the start of March. I know you guys can do it! I've even already got some fun ideas to do some interesting things with the scrap than the original with just I think there are rocks or gold nuggets? I can't even see that right. it's hard to tell.
Whee!
So, the best of luck, and we will see you guys in the next and probably last episode of the Salmon Run Amiibo series.
Bonjour.
But that's going to be all from us for now. Keep those creative gears turning, and we will see you guys in the next episode.